All right, exclusionary by category. This is where you exclude drugs by category, not by brand manufacturers. So most plans, how many of you know that you cover PPIs or non-sedating antihistamines? Okay, you should stop doing that. Oh, you don't cover it? Okay, how many of you still cover it? I'm sure most of you still cover PPIs, or you don't know. So PPIs are for GERD. Non-sedating antihistamines are, Zyrtec. I'm sure you've heard the ads, especially this time of year. I even kind of sniffling from allergies. So both of those are available over the counter. You typically, I know you have to cover aspirin for the Affordable Care Act, but you typically don't cover OTC products. Why are you continuing to cover these? Well, one of the reasons is Nexium has one of the highest rebates as a percentage available in the industry, and your PBM probably hasn't clued you in on the fact that they're available OTC, and so because they're still getting the rebates on these products, so you might want to go back and look at that. Testosterone medication, my colleague that works at POS is a pharmacist. He's male and he's over 50, and he just keeps railing on, Susan, you got to tell him about testosterone. It leads to strokes and heart attacks in men over 50, which is exactly where this drug is plugged for. So if you want to encourage strokes and heart attacks in your medical plan, this is one way to do it. Compounds, I can't stand up here as a fraud auditor and say that, something about compounds. This is the worst thing since sliced bread. Basically a change in the law, the Cosmetic Act, allowed compounders to directly solicit patients, and that is what the devil was born when that law got passed, a definite unintended consequence. So now compound manufacturers can solicit patients directly, and they do. I mean, we had one client, physician in Illinois, patients all in Illinois. They had over 500 claims from a Park Avenue, New York compounder, and just ungodly amounts of compounds, $500,000 worth of compounds from one facility. So make sure your plan doesn't pay those. And who is the boss? Exclusionary formularies. Make sure that your PBM, if it is offering an exclusionary formulary, you are getting 100% of the rebates, because this is going to make your phone light up as a benefit manager. When I can't get my insulin from one manufacturer, but I can get it from another, it just doesn't make sense to me. Hard to explain to members. Make sure if this is the case, you are getting 100% of the rebates. Get the pain for the gain, or get the gain for the pain, so to speak. Quantity limits. You should definitely have quantity limits, not from a cost management perspective, but from a safety perspective. We saw one client that had 400, I would say about 20 members, that had 450 days worth of supply of narcotics within a 365-day time frame. So these patients had refilled so many times so early, it had so much days supply that they had almost over 100 days in excess of a year within a year. I hope you got that. But so you definitely, on pain medications, migraine medications, ADHD and insomnia medications, please put in quantity limits, because it will save somebody's life. On the flip side, consider coverage of Narcan, which is the nasal inhalant spray for heroin doses. This is a topic that I did not ever believe I would be standing up here talking about, heroin overdoses, but it is epidemic in this country. You can see there's a HuffPost link here. The number of overdose deaths increased to 43,000 from 41,000 in 1 year. That is 7 more heroin overdoses a day in this country increase, not 7 a day, but 7 a day increase from 1 year to the next. And I have this picture, because this looks like everybody's daughter, right? This isn't the strung out Ron Woods kind of looking heroin addict, you see he is a kind of poster boy for heroin addiction. This is your daughters, this is your sons in high school, this is a suburban middle class epidemic. So Please be aware of that, and please talk to your EAP provider and coordinate with your medical and pharmacy plan. Okay, I have about 20 minutes left. Hopefully we can get through this specialty drug issue. The first part of understanding specialty drugs is that there's no common understanding of this program. So that's the first thing you need to know. Each PBM defines specialty in a different manner, and they do that purposefully because it allows them to escape certain financial performance guarantees for brand drugs in both retail and mail order. And they can over or under report the cost impact of specialty to the plan. So there are varying industry definitions. I give you the definition from the Academy of Managed Care Pharmacy, which is kind of the guru of any pharmacist that practice either in hospitals or in retail settings. So the Academy of Managed Care Pharmacy says that specialty pharmaceuticals are specialty if they are difficult or unusual to process or delivery, that they also have patient management reports, and there's follow-up administration of the patient on these drugs. So that's one definition. Pretty vague, pretty wishy-washy, pretty much a lot of drugs can fall into that, but that's the Academy of Managed Care Pharmacy's definition. PBM executives, Academy of Managed Care Pharmacy also polled PBM executives, and they said that there's no consistent definition. And I think here's the bullet point you need to take away. It allows for confusion with patients. When you tell a patient they have to mail in their specialty drug prescription, and gee, this is a tablet, Harvoni is a tablet. Why do I have to mail it in? Why? It's not an injectable. What's going on here? I don't know. Do I mail it in? Do I go to the pharmacy and then I get penalized? And, I get phone calls and the benefit manager's pissed off, and then they phone Ballard and Ballard's all, okay. So you get the idea. Just a lot of confusion around the definition of specialty. I thought this slide was really funny. So when asked to define specialty drugs, PBM and specialty pharma executives provided a number of responses. And if you look over 11 of them responded, we just don't define it. So I think that's really the bottom line. There's a lot of definitions here. You need to, again, go back to your PBM contract and see if there's a definition of specialty pharmacy in there. Well, whatever these drugs are, they are darned expensive. I had another word in here, but Ballard made me take it out. They are really expensive. So this is the highest percentage of increase in monthly AWP over the last 2 years. You see Humira and Enbrel over here to the far right. How many of you are golfers? Okay, Phil, he has his commercial for Enbrel, right? Well, Phil's not cheap. And apparently that's what's caused the increase, not the clinical effectiveness of Enbrel, but apparently all those ads on TV are what's making the cost of these drugs go up. You can see it's almost a 60% increase in 2 years. That's unbelievable. How many of you have gotten 60% pay raises in the last 2 years? If so, I'd like to come work for your company. I'll do anything as long as I get a 60% increase. The dollar increase is the highest dollar increase we have seen in some of the oncology drugs like Sutent and Tracleer. If you've had any members that have had kidney cancer, Sutent is the drug there, and you can see Humira's in here as well, Enbrel's in here as well, Copaxone for MS, Truvada. Truvada is a tablet, and it is for HIV. It is one of the most diverted drugs in America. Diverted means stolen. So it is one of the most stolen drugs because Truvada gets sent over. Boko Haram is a terrorist group in Western Africa. They use Truvada to enslave folks into their mission. And how they do it is they say, we'll treat your relatives for HIV/AIDS if you'll only come work for us as a terrorist. So this is the benefit plan at Boko Haram. If you would like to emulate that, that's what's going on. But anyway, I just want to point that out, one of the most expensive drugs in the country and one of the most highly diverted. So new to market drugs in 2016, these are drugs that are coming out this year. We took a stab at what the prices are going to be. Again, talk about terrorists. This is terrifying when you see the cost estimates of some of these new chemical compounds, or not compounds, but new chemical entities coming out. And you can see that they range from anywhere, they aren't cheap, anywhere from $1,000 to $38,000 a month in therapy. So again, we don't know what the prices are of these new agents that are coming out, but they are going to be really expensive. And all of these will hit the market this year. So, you know, all of these very expensive drugs are going to be hitting the market. I am not the upbeat speaker. That comes at the end. That's the NFL guy. So this is a bit of an eye chart again, and I apologize, but the point here is that if you are looking at various PBMs, they all have different discount rates for specialty drugs. And we just, in a last project that we just did, we compared 7 PBMs for some of the leading, you know, you see Sovaldi down here. You know, if you look at the second to last row here, you see Sovaldi, anywhere from a 0% discount, really, whoa. So that means you're paying $100,000 for it. To a 16% discount, which means you're paying $84,000 for it. So, you know, you can see how these differ. And 1 percentage point is a big ticket when you're paying $100,000. So just keep this in mind, and, you know, when you compare different PBMs. Explaining some of the cost increases, there's really no explanation other than when you look at these drugs that are coming out, they have what's called a narrow therapeutic index or an orphan drug status, which means there is a narrowing. These aren't blockbuster drugs that are coming out. This is not Lipitor that's going to treat, you know, 40 million people. This is, you know, maybe going to treat 1,000, maybe a couple thousand, maybe 5,000. So how do drug companies continue to make a profit when the patient base that they're marketing to is shrinking? Well, the only way to do that is to raise prices, and that's exactly what they're doing. And you can see that drug companies must continue to show an increase because, you know, jobs are expected to grow in the specialty arena, and biotech sales are expected to increase by 18%. And again, the only way you can do that with a narrowing market, if you will, is to increase prices. So that's one explanation for your increase in price. You know, understanding, did any of you see the Big Short around holidays? I loved that movie. I was screaming out, my husband was like, Susan, shut up. I was screaming out, that's the PBM industry. The new mortgage is the new PBM industry. All right, he wasn't particularly happy with me doing that, but anyway. Understanding specialty drugs is really a lesson in Wall Street economics. Again, you know, the PBMs must continue to grow, and it's the same thing as the pharma must continue to grow, the PBMs must continue to grow. And Express Scripts and Caremark profits have increased more than 6-fold, from less than $1 billion in 2003 to $6 billion in 2013, and yet pretty much the same number of lives are covered by the 3 big PBMs. So the story is really sounding similar. PBMs and pharmaceutical manufacturers need to increase profit, but they don't increase the number of lives. And again, how do you do that? You increase prices, and you do that by unreported and undisclosed profits, as we've talked about before, and transparency and traditional mechanisms. So if you're a benefit manager, how do you manage cost? Well, one, review your PBM contract. Have I said that enough? I think so. But specifically around specialty, make sure you have a specialty drug definition. Compare the discounts between different PBMs and also between retail. You know, I often see where the retail brand discount is AWP minus 16, average wholesale price minus 16, but you're not getting that in the specialty environment. Well, why is that? Why can't you just go to your retailer and get it at 16 instead of paying AWP minus 0 from your specialty provider? So again, just compare specialty and retail to your specialty provider.